So I was taking a break, right? And, like we all do, we go to social media or we call our friends or whatever, right? So I was on Instagram and I'm scrolling through, and then I see this video of Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet. I've already done their Synastry together, and I've already given what the Synastry says. Right, but there were a lot of comments which are not kind, regarding their relationship. And some people thought, she seems a bit older, she's older, she looks older than him, right? And so I had to remember his chart. I'm like, what's happening with his chart? And I remembered he's got a Saturn in his seventh house, right? And as we all know, Saturn in the seventh house will give you a matured spouse, or will lead you to even if they're not matured in age, they would be matured in actions or in how they look. There would be something matured about them, right? So for me, I was like, oh, okay, that's why, and of course, excuse my voice. I don't know how many times I have to say this. I'm sure you guys know. You just like, what's happening with the voice today? We're just gonna see it, right? But anyway, here it is, because the weather is so bad. And at night, when I sleep, if I don't switch on like the heater to make the room cozy and a bit humid, the room gets too dry and my voice gets a bit damaged, because who's ruling my second house, right? Fluctuations, right? But anyway, so I was like, you know what, let me talk about Saturn in the seventh house in a more detailed view, so that people can understand what's to be expected, because we already know about the delays, and it's not all the time, because there are people who get married very young with the seventh house Saturn. And another person that I can think of who did that is Jada Pinkett Smith. But those who do get married early with the seventh house Saturn, they tend to be unhappy about the relationship. They would complain too much about the marriage. Something would be off about the marriage to them, or would feel off, as Jada obviously had spoken so publicly about how unhappy she was about her wedding, her dress. She didn't want that, she didn't want this, she didn't want that, right? And about her marriage, she's not happy, she's not been happy, all of that, because of that Saturn in the seventh house. So a lot of times that's why astrologers would be like, oh no, you have to wait until you're like 36, 37 years old, when Saturn is matured and can be able to take things in a lighter manner, but still in a responsible manner. So let's just get into a bit of a discussion about the seventh house Saturn. So of course we're talking about it from both angles, the Synastry point of view, and if it's in your personal chart, right? By the way, Moon is transiting in Cancer, right? Still in Cancer since yesterday, and now it's at 18 degrees, right? And when it's at 18 degrees, it's in Hydra, the lunar mansion Hydra, right? Or the cluster of stars Hydra. And in Vedic, it would be in Ashlesha, right? Ashlesha Nakshatra from the Vedic point of view. But I have difficulty to even say the word nakshatra, and so I just find it easier for me personally to just say lunar mansion, because it's easier. And anyway, but same thing, right? Same thing, just different words. It's like the same thing, like we say God and the other person is gonna say Allah, and the other person is gonna say Kamata, and the other person is gonna say the universe, and the other person is gonna say different forms, different thing, but same source, same person, same place, right? But anyway, now with the moon transiting in the Hydra lunar mansion right now, partners or people in general would tend to be a bit secretive today. They would tend to use a bit of sweet talking, just kind of like bending the truth a bit to have their way. And some people would just prefer not to be talkative about how they're feeling or what they want to do and all of these things. Or that's the moon today because it's in the Hydra. So the Hydra, it represents, or it resembles the snake, the serpent, So you know how a snake is. It's going to like try to hide itself, in the house, but then it's also dangerous at the same time. So that's the energy of today when we're looking at from the moon perspective, right? But I say all of that to say this: when it comes to Saturn in the 7th house, right, there are two sides like in any other case, right? We have the upside points and the downside points, right? So when it comes to the good side, Saturn in the 7th house will give durability. Once it's committed, then it's just going to try to put up with everything that is happening, to endure, to show commitment regardless of any situation, right? Such as how Jada is so committed into being married to Will, regardless of what they faced, regardless of everything. It is because of that certain energy binding her in a shot, right?
There are so many surprising things in the book, but the thing that surprised me the most, that I actually had to reread it because I said, is this true?
Right.
Was that in 2016, you and Will decided that you were going to live completely separate lives.
Yes.
It was not a divorce on paper,
right,
but it was a divorce. So from the year 2016, which is 7 years ago now,
yes,
y'all have been...
Same thing in Synastry. When your Saturn makes an overlay, partner's 7th house, right? Now, depending on the degrees, I can't press it enough. I just have to emphasize this. Depending on the degrees, right? It's either the house person or the certain person who's going to want to make it work a long term. Just like I showed how the moon is behaving today because it's in the 18th degree, which is a different set of constellation in terms of stars, right? It's acting differently as it was acting or behaving or making people behave, last week, because last week it was below 16 degrees in a different lunar mansion, giving a different behavior to people. So this is why I keep emphasizing on the degrees, right? Any case, when Saturn is in the 7th house, it can give this stability, this durability, right? Depending on the degrees, who is going to push for this marriage to last? Is it the Saturnian energy? Is it the Saturnian planet? Or is it the house that is hosting this Saturn? Very important. Number 2, the Saturn here, it is also good because it's always looking for balancing, the relationship, to give it love, but at the same time to give it practicality. Again, for here, you have to look at the sign. Definitely the sign was going to tell you if there's even love at all. Because some relationships could be like a contract, could be like business, could be like, an arranged marriage where there's no love. But then how do you see there's no love? You look at the sign. Which signs would tell you? For example, if it's in Libra sign, Taurus sign, we know here there's love. We know there's a foundation of love, right? But if it's in another sign, then it could be maybe a contract, it could be maybe arranged situation, or maybe forced marriage where there's a mass energy. You see, so look at everything, right? Number 3, what we know about this Saturn here is that there's always going to be, money or resources that are brought into the marriage, because Saturn is all about having resources, having material access, and if it doesn't, it's going to look outside, it's going to connect with other people, because Saturn is a connector to people, because the 11th house is ruled by Saturn, and that's the networks, that's the profits, that's the gains. So Saturn rules all these things. So in the 7th house, it's going to bring all of that energy, connecting people, trying to get the resources together, trying to organize for the marriage so that there is stability in terms of material success as well, right? But now when it comes to the bad side, or the downside, the Saturn here can make things a bit dull in the relationship, whereby you feel like you don't have the zip 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 zzz of fire that you need. Woo! Right, so things could be a bit dull, unless of course it's receiving nice aspects from other planets to make things go boom 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 boom. Woo! Yes, right. But anyway, it can also bring a bit of responsibility, whereby one of the partners feels like, oh my gosh, I have this marriage on my shoulders. It's a bit tough, right? But that's the energy of Saturn. You will have the good things, but you have to work. You will have the glory, but you have to put the cross on your shoulders and drag it along, right? So that's the energy. We know that, okay? And it also can make the relationship have a cold starting point, particularly in Synastry, whereby you have your Saturn, overlaying your partner's 7th house, and now the relationship feels like, oh, it's not starting. I've been trying to warm up this guy. He's not warming up. What am I supposed to do, meter? Right. It is that Saturn in energy. It just needs a bit of work. Push the car to start, right? But once it's started, then it's going to run. It's going to be running for a very long time. But unless it is a retrograde, because here is a different story. A retrograde Saturn in the 7th house does not act as a normal Saturn in the 7th house, right? So you need to be aware of this. And the degrees, I cannot emphasize this enough. A Saturn in the first degrees and the lower degrees is going to act extremely differently from a Saturn in the later degrees, right? So that's another thing that you need to look at to be able to see what is going to happen in this relationship. And of course, look at your signs and look at the aspect and look at the other planets as well. What are they doing? What is the Lord of the 7th house doing? Where has it gone to? What is happening to it? Is it conjunct with a certain planet? What's going on? Right, so those are the things that you just need to be aware of. Otherwise, let me rest my voice and I'll chat to you soon. Be into and ciao.